Assalamu alaikum. Today we are here live from Planet 87.6, the only English radio channel of Pakistan. So today is 30th of March and 8th of Ramazan, and it's a lovely weather out there. Over to you, JD.
So we have Dr. Aftab with us, who is an amazing personality. Just hearing his story just gave me goosebumps. So Dr. Aftab, why don't you tell us about your amazing journey?
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Thank you very much for having me here today in the studio. I think this is my first actually in the English radio channel program. I'm first time here. So let me give you an overview about my educational background. I have done my graduation in microbiology and molecular genetics from Punjab University. Then my MS was mainly focused on biotechnology. My PhD was in area of stem cell biology, so its area is called regenerative medicine. And then my postdoc was in area of tissue engineering. So I started with the microbiology and moved till the tissue engineering. And right now I'm doing some projects related to the tissue engineering that I'll definitely share in this program.
Oh, so you've had an amazing journey so far. So what do you think, the topic today that we're going to talk about is the science of fasting. So what is your point of view with science? How do you think that science and fasting is relatable?
Well, this is very interesting. Actually, first I think we should discuss briefly about the history about the fasting, when it started, and why it's so much important that every religion is actually following the fasting. So it's not only the Muslims, all the religion, they have some kind of fasting in that religion. So if we talk about the early humans, they used to live in the caves and they used to hunt. So sometimes they hunt an animal and they eat it, and sometimes they had to starve for many days. And then body has developed a mechanism of survival, that how they can survive in case of starvation. If we talk about known history, if we even talk about the prime religion before the Hinduism, there are documentation that even those people, they used to fast. Then there is a fasting even in Hinduism, and later on even Buddhist, we know about the Buddhists, they were mainly in Pakistani region, we know the Texla region and around they were here. And we know the history that even till today, the Buddhists, the monks, they also used to fast.
Exactly.
If we talk about the other religions, if we know about Judaism and if we know about the Christianity, they also fast. And then the Muslim, we also fast. So if we talk about all the religions, even if we talk about the prime religion, and beside this, there are documents recently revealed from pyramids. The pyramids, they were built around 1700 to 2500 BC, even before Christ. So there are documents revealed there, and there is also in those documentation, there is evidence about the fasting. So those people, even in that era, they used to fast. So fasting is one of the things which is common in the history. Even if we talk about all the prophets, starting from Prophet Adam, Prophet Adam used to fast. And that actually fasting tradition that started from Prophet Adam, and it moved towards the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So it's common in all the religions, it's common in even in prime religions, even those who even don't follow the religion, we know they also used to fast. So fasting is one of the things which is very common. So this is a bit about the history. Then if we talk about the science of fasting, so actually it's not started by the Muslims. The science is something very different. So in science, whatever we study, there is a proper mechanism that we have to set some trials, we work on the animals, and we check whether something is safe, and then first we check the safety, and then we go towards the efficacy. So it actually started in Russia. There was a town close to Lake Baikal. So there is a center there. It started in 1930, and the center was mainly focused on the fasting. So they started working initially on the fasting, that whether it's safe for the people to fast. And then they got very good results after not only it was safe, but it was also effective. So they started running bigger trials. So initially it started with few people, and then they have gone to more people, and they found that it's really effective against certain diseases. So they started investigating, and then this investigation actually spread it to whole Europe. Many Europeans, they couldn't travel to Russia. So they thought that we should have the centers in other countries. So in 1960s, there is a place called Oberlinken that is in Germany, and they also built a big center on fasting. So the only treatment being provided there is based on fasting. And then it started in many hospitals. So in Europe, Charity Hospital that is in Berlin, that is the biggest hospital in Europe, and they have now a dedicated ward which provided treatment just based on fasting. And there are many centers now in America and also in many European countries which are providing the treatment on fasting. So this is like a big background how it started and some about the history. And I think in few minutes we'll also discuss that how fasting is really beneficial for our health.
Yes, before this, I think people just knew that fasting was a religious obligation, right? They didn't know that science was related to it as well.
Yes.
So how do you think, can you explain that how is fasting important for our skin, for our health, especially for skin, because like us women, girls are really concerned for our skin.
So what happened in the modern age. Actually, initially, once again if we go back into the history, initially there was not surplus food. As I mentioned, that there were not many people. They used to hunt and they used to starve as well. So then there came the agricultural revolution that started about 12,000 years ago. So we started planting the crops, and then we used to harvest, so we had enough food for the storage and eating. So that starvation thing kind of gone. So sometimes there is a famine and then the people have to stop, but otherwise it was perfectly fine. Then in the modern age, for the last 300 years, we have invented so many methods of preserving food, so processing food. So now in the present era, we have the surplus food, so we can eat. You have the breakfast in the morning, and then you go for some snacks after the breakfast. Then you go for the lunch, and then you go for brunch, and then you go for dinner. So the things are continuing, and even at midnight you feel that you have to eat something, and you go to the fridge and then open it and try to get something to eat. So what happens, we started eating, and with this actually came the modern all kind of diseases. So we are suffering with a lot of cardiovascular diseases. Cancer is becoming more common. We are suffering from hypertension. We are suffering from many other diabetes is very common. So let me give you some statistics from Pakistan. So these are actually called the modern age diseases. The Western diseases, now they are moved to Eastern countries as well. So they are very common in our countries. So if we talk about, for example, diabetes, 26.7% adult population in Pakistan is suffering from diabetes. That is 1 in every 4 person is suffering from diabetes. So that's a huge number.
My father, he's diabetic as well. So
it's a very common thing. And hypertension, 46%, even more than 46%, Pakistani population, adult population is suffering from hypertension. So you can imagine that how every second person is suffering from hypertension. So these kind of diseases are very common, and these diseases are mainly due to our habits of overeating and sitting all the time. So these two habits we have developed. And in order to overcome the situation, and if we talk about diabetes, what happens in diabetes? Actually, we eat all the time, so our blood sugar that goes at high level, and then cells are actually not accepting that sugar. So that's called the glucose insensitivity. So that's a kind of technical term, but what actually happens, the glucose level go higher in the blood, and they are not being uptaken by the cells, so they stay in the circulation, and then it damages all the parts of the body. So one of the things, when we go for fasting, what we can do, we can deplete the glucose from the blood. So those people who are in pre-diabetic stage, they can even reverse that pre-diabetic stage. They become normal after gone towards the fasting. So one of the added benefit of fasting is you deplete the excessive glucose. Another benefit is if you want to lose weight, for example. So what happens when we deplete our glucose in our body? Then our body start eating the fats. So fat is converted into glucose. So this is how we can lose the excessive weight. So we can convert the fat. And I would like to share a very interesting thing, that people think that after fasting they will be weak, but it's
Mm.
not true, because in fasting we only lose the fats.
Exactly.
Even like a person like me, or if a person like you, if we are 70 kg in weight, we have around 15 kg of fat in our body, and
Oh.
we have like even more. So in that case, a person can survive without eating more than 40 days. So you
40
can
days.
imagine,
Oh,
if you
40 days.
only drink water and
Mm.
take some salts, you can survive more than 40 days without eating, because
Wow.
we can utilize our fats. And this
Oh.
even happen in some of the animals. For example, penguins,
Mm.
they can even fast. They don't eat for over 110 days. They go like fast for
Wow.
like 110 to 120 days. They don't eat anything,
Wow.
and they lose just fats, and then they eat and become normal. So this is like one of the thing, which is
So
like,
it's better for us. So we have a higher chance of survival, right?
but like in our cases, what we do, like in Pakistan, I was like in a meeting back in 2011. I was in Japan,
Oh.
in a beautiful island of Okinawa.
Wow.
So Okinawa is a place in Japan that have the highest population of older people. So
Hmm.
that have, even on the other side, they have the maximum life expectancy. So they have maximum life.
Mhm.
Okinawa is like one of the ideal place for the people,
Yeah.
because of environment and many other factors. So I was there in a meeting, and then there was a professor actually from America. He presented about the fasting and the benefit of fasting, and then
Hmm.
he mentioned, like, he was laughing that this tradition is common among the Muslims, but what he has observed, and he shared that, like, if Muslims, they have weight of like 70 kg in the start
Yes.
of month of Ramadan, and after Ramadan the weight is not reduced to 65 kg, but it goes to like 75
Exactly.
kg.
Yes, the
Because
gain
like
weight.
after after like we open the fast, we go for
Yes,
eating, and we
iftar.
keep eating till Sahar. So
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, that's a fact. Like, eating pakoras, samosas, like all
the
those
oily
fried
things.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I do have a question. Like, do you think that fasting impacts your brain health? Like, does it affect your mood? It gives you mood swings?
So fasting is actually what I am going to share with you. This is the documented research that is published in many prestigious journals. So actually, it has a lot of brain health. So one of the thing
Oh.
about fasting is what actually we consume during our daily routine is the glucose. Glucose is our currency for running the body, and brain is a very small as compared to the rest of the body. It's just 2% of our body weight,
Oh.
but it consumes 20 to 25% of body energy. So you can imagine, like, it's just 2% of the weight, but it consumes like 25% of our body energy. So it's like it's an organ which consumes a lot of energy. So the brain that mainly consumes the glucose. But when we go for fasting, then there is a switch in metabolism in our bodies, and we develop the ketone bodies. Ketone bodies an alternative energy source, is alternative than the glucose, and
Yes.
brain love that.
Okay.
And there are lot of advantages of ketone bodies. One of the advantage of ketone bodies is like it's antioxidative.
Hmm.
So there is a lot of antioxidation going on in our brain. And what the documentary research says, that when we go towards from glucose to ketone bodies and we utilize in our brain, we
Yes.
improve our cognitive function. So our cognitive function is improved, so we can have better cognition. Our focus is improved, so we can have a better focus. Another very interesting fact about like fasting is, initially we used to think, I'm actually a stem cell scientist, so we used to think that there is a fixed number of stem cells in our brain. That was like 10 years ago, but now we know that it's not true. We can increase the number of stem cell. Initially, like, we got the clue from exercise. So if you go for exercise, or if you go for regular walk, we can increase the number of stem cells in our brain. So stem cells, so let me give you an idea about the stem cell. So the stem cells are the naive kind of cells. They don't have any specialized function, but they can be converted into specialized cells. So initially, if we talk about our developmental process, so initially there is a zygote, there is a single cell, then divide to 2 cells, then 4 cells, then 8 cells. So those are called the totipotent stem cells. If we isolate one of those 8 cells, and then we can develop into another individual. So we can make 8 clones of those persons. So we can make eight individual persons. And then the development process goes on, and then those are called later on, like at 5 days after the developmental process. Those are called the embryonic stem cells, and embryonic stem cells can make all the cells in our body. So these are called, so stem cells, you will get another like good idea. Actually, we have the RBCs, and they have a life of about 120 days.
Yes.
And after 120 days, they die. So how we get the new RBCs? Because in our body, like in your body, we have around 23 trillion red blood cells.
Yes.
So not billions, but in trillions. So 23 trillion RBCs, and they die after 120 days. So how you are getting more RBCs? From where they are coming? The source is the stem cells. So stem cells at the back, they are called the hematopoietic stem cells. So the hematopoietic stem cells, they are converted into all type of blood cells. So the source is stem cells. So stem cells are very important. And why we age is only because we are actually depleting the number of stem cells in our body. So you were talking about the skin. So why, how we can have a fresh skin even we are at the old, when we get old. So initially we have to understand why there are wrinkles when we are getting old.
Yes.
So actually what happens initially, we have enough cells, the stem cells at the back. So the skin cells, they have a life of about 28 days. After 28 days, the cells, they die and shed away, and the new cells are formed. So that's why so initially what happens, the new cells which are formed, they are more, and the dead cells, they are less. So that's why we are like having the glowing skin. And after, when we are like getting old, what happens? Actually, in that case, the stem cells are less. So new cells, they are formed, they are lesser in number, and the dying cells, they are more in number. So we have more cells which are dying. That's why we get the wrinkles. So this is actually one of the theory about aging, is we deplete the number of stem cells, and stem cells are very, very good for our health. One of the key advantage of fasting is we can increase the stem cells. Stem cells in our skin, stem cells in our brain, stem cells in our intestine, stem cells in our whole body. So if you want to age slow, you have to fast. So fasting is like one of the things which is really, really important, that if you really want to age slow, you have to go for fasting. And I always think that it's a complete health package by the God. So God has given us a complete health package. So this is just one of the advantage that I've shared with you, that we can increase the number of stem cells. So like I was doing a research, my colleague, he's working in area of stem cells. So we were already like used to discuss that how we can increase the stem cells in our body. So what we can do, and there we got the like answer, that if you go for fasting or if you go for exercise, then you can increase the number of stem cells. And this is all. That's why there is a very beautiful quotation, I must say. If you want to age slow, walk briskly. So if you want to like age slowly, walk briskly. So you have like quick walk if you really want to age slow. So age, and another like statement from Harvard University, that's a leading university in the world.
Yes.
So they say that one of the most powerful medicine on earth is walking. So if you really go for walking every day, that's one of the most powerful, because then you can restore the whole health. But we are talking about like fasting. So this is just one advantage, like we increase the number of stem cells. So I said that we increase the cognitive power of our brain, we increase the focus of our brain, we increase the stem cells of our brain. One of like beautiful thing about fasting is there is a growth factor called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So this is a factor which increases the number of connections in our brain, improve the plasticity in our brain. So if you really want to learn new things, then you have to express this growth factor in our brain. And research says that if you want to express that, you have to fast. So fasting can really like increase the plasticity of your brain, your learning, your memory, your cognition, your decision making, your focus is increased if you go for fasting. Another advantage of fasting is we can go for mitochondriogenesis. So that's a technical term, but I can explain to you. Actually, what happens in our bodies, the powerhouse that actually make us to run and to do all the activities in our cells is called mitochondria. So mitochondria is very important, and there is actually a difference in number of mitochondria in our cells. So what happens when we go towards like aging process, the number of mitochondria reduce in our cells. For example, if you are like 20 years old you may have 100 mitochondria in your cells, and when you will be 70 years old, you will have like 20-25 mitochondria. So that's why, like at this stage, you can run 10 miles. I don't know exactly if you can run, but like if you will be 70 years old, you may be able to merely walk. So
exactly.
So what happens actually, we have low in energy when we are old, and one of the reason is our mitochondria number is less. That's why we are like making less energy. That's called the ATP. So we make less ATP when we age. So advantage of fasting, another like documented fact about fasting is, as I mentioned, that we can go for mitochondriogenesis. So we make more mitochondria in our brain when we go towards fasting. So fasting is like another advantage if we go for the brain health is
awesome.
We have to fast.
Okay, so
most of us weren't aware of all of these
exactly.
benefits.
I mean, that seriously opened up a lot in my mind. Like, I never thought that fasting could make me age slower, lose weight that much.
Yes, exactly, and it's that good for our skin.
Exactly, just open up my mind. So I do have a follow-up question with that. So you said that we could increase our stem cells. So does that have any relations with like increasing our mitochondrial cells? Sorry if I pronounce it wrong.
Mitochondria. So yes. So one of the advantage of fasting is if we can like that's not only happen in the brain but also happens in our rest of the body. So we increase the number of mitochondria when we go towards the fasting, and we increase the number of stem cells. So this is how we actually slow the aging process. Another very important thing is about the fasting is like when we have these two things, they are also linked with the aging process. So recently, all our characteristics, they are controlled by the genes. So genes are the things, it's not the gene we wear, but it's actually the genes which are the genetic material. So everything we have, like if you will have the gray hair or if you have the black hair, is controlled by the genes. Genetics. What color of your skin will be is controlled by the genes. What height you will have is controlled by the genes. So everything is controlled by the genes. So there is a study, and they say recently one of the interesting thing is recently we had a discovery, and we found that there are actually genes which control the aging process. So they are called the sirtuin genes. So some like technical terminologies, but you can like simply you can understand that just like we have all the features controlled by the genes, just like our skin color, our height, our hair color, everything is controlled by the genes. Similarly, our aging process is controlled by the genes. So they are called the sirtuin genes, and right now we know there are 7 such genes which are linked with our aging process. So actually what happens when we go towards aging, and they are also linked, they have the link with the mitochondria, they have the link with the stem cells. So when you go towards the aging, these genes become inactive. And fasting is a way that can once again activate those genes. So we can also activate those sirtuin genes, and this is how we can once again we can slow the aging process. So like it has a multiple mechanism which are acting when we go towards fasting. So many things are actually happening in our body. For example, when we go towards fasting and we fast for like 10 hours, like normally we are having fast like 14-15 hours,
13-14.
So like when we fast for 10 hours, then there are so many growth factors are actually released in our circulation. So they are very important. All those growth factors are important to regenerate our body. So like if you have some knee problem, just like we have the knee problem in older age, or like mothers, they are suffering from knee pain and many other complications. So we can repair this. So we can repair through the growth factors. Those growth factors, they are repairing our liver, they are repairing our heart, they are repairing our kidneys. So this is so amazing that there are like 2 ways of or 3 ways of having those growth factors. One is you can introduce in your blood, and that's not a safe way because we don't know in what quantity we need those growth. So you may have like extra dose, and that can be very damaging, so you can damage your health. So that's not like safe thing. There are 2 natural ways of inducing those growth hormones in our bodies, and one is you go for fasting, another is you go for exercise. So these 2 are the mechanism, and if you combine both, you can imagine that if you also like fast and go for walk, so you can like add so many benefits.
So let's take a short break for now, and
we will be right back.
We'll be right back
after a short music break.